Hi everyone, welcome to Not Your Normal Nerding. I'm going to talk about norms today. Um, if you think about what people consider normal to be, it is slightly different for everyone, but if you think about it, everybody thinks about the same when it comes to certain things. So we're going to look at society and the perspective on what normal is and how sometimes if you look at it, normal may not be the best option when it comes to handling the world. So we're going to talk about this microcosm and macrocosm, and you'll kind of see the gist behind how that perspective is on what normal is. So if you look at something called the normal curve, the bell curve, whatever you want to call it, the reality of it is most of the world falls into this band of about what you would normally see, as in maybe the average height of a person. If you look at somebody who's a man, average height is anywhere from about 5'6" to 5'9", and women is roughly from about 5'2" to 5'7", 5'6" roughly. So it's just kind of like what you see is, yes, you have people that are taller and shorter than what the normal is, but overall, the general population is going to fit within whatever that range is going to be. So that's what you see as normal. It's normal that everybody needs to get some sleep. There are people who can go for weeks and months without sleep, but what you find is most people, they need to sleep. So they'll sleep for a certain amount of time. But sleep, it's normal to get sleep. It's normal to wake. It's normal to eat. It's normal to drink. What people choose to drink, that's up to them. But ultimately, those are normals. You look at how society works. You look at every culture has a basis. In the American culture, what you see on average is people wake up early in the morning. They might get ready for work. They go to work. They work. And once they're done with work, they come home and have dinner and go to bed and do the same thing again. That's a normal. People go shopping at the mall for certain items because it's close by. People go to grocery stores to buy food. That's the normal. There are people who might go to the fresh market instead, or people who maybe work night shift and so forth. So whatever it is, there's a normal to it. But the reality is, even if you work night shift, it's about the same thing as somebody who works during the day. You go to sleep, you wake up, you get ready for work, you go to work, you come home, then you go to bed and do the same thing over and over again. It doesn't matter if it's a weekday or weekend, but there's a normal side to it. The reason why we're having this prospectus is with 2020 has been one of those years where the normal didn't happen. So in the US, March of this year, everybody was under quarantine. So for the next 2 months or so, all the normal things you would see, people going to work. Well, no, a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people had to televideo or work at home using internet, using video conferencing, whatever. They didn't go to the office because of the quarantine. A lot of people, because of manufacturing slowed down, they lost their jobs because normally they would have a job in manufacturing. They didn't. Restaurants, they closed down, so servers, the service industry shut down, and quite a lot of people had to stay home, mainly to protect their life and their well-being. That's not normal. That's not something you see in the typical routine. It's been a very, very long time since we've had a pandemic that has caused the world to be abnormal. So what happens because of that? So here's the crazy thing about it is everybody gets sick and tired of being stuck at home. Everybody wants to go out and enjoy life, do the recreational stuff, get back to work, because everybody has bills that they have to pay. Just because you cannot go to work doesn't mean your cell phone bill gets cheaper. You still have your cell phone cost. There's still a cost to it, so you have to make that money somehow. Yes, there are some people who chose taking government assistance, and that's fine, but in the end, all that stuff runs out. So those things are abnormal. Those things don't normally happen. It's not your normal. So what do you hear? So this humongous pandemic happens. Everybody has to put on a mask. Everybody has to socially distance, which realistically, I think they use the wrong term. We'll talk about terminologies later, as we have through most of our perspectives, is terminology we don't get right. Physical distance or so, that's the key thing, is social distance doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You want to be physically at least 6 feet away from people because that decreases your risk of catching the virus. You don't have to be socially distant. Even at 6 feet away, you can say, hey, how are you doing? That's being social. That's not social distance. You can still talk to somebody from 6 feet away. You might have to carry your voice a little bit louder, but you still talk to people. Physically, you have to be a little bit further. Why? Because it protects other people and it can protect yourself as well. So all these things change. Even the way we wait in line, the way we choose to go about our day-to-day business. Shopping for groceries or going to work. Now we have a lot more people that are working from home still. A lot of offices are shut down because they're having to revamp all that. Businesses, restaurants, they're having to revamp where they seat people. So all these are trying to get back to some kind of way of life. And technically a lot of people say, man, I wish we just get back to our normal. We can just get back to our normal routine. Okay, let's think about this for 1 second. Didn't the normal routine make the situation what it is? So why would you want to go back to the normal? Because the normal way of doing it is the reason why we have so many people that contract the virus. The normal was we had 18 inches away from each other when we were standing in line. The normal is we'd have large crowded spaces. The normal is we'd sit close to each other in the office. Well, if we get back to the normal, things get worse because of that, because we're not protecting the one key thing, the one key aspect that can prevent a spread of a virus, that is close interaction. So why would you want to get back to your normal? Yes, it would be nice to be able to go back to work, have a job, but all those things need to be rethought of. And maybe we shouldn't get back to the normal when it comes to society as a whole. Maybe it's time to adjust or come up with technologies or come up with new methodologies, new science, that if we do decide that we want to be 4 feet apart instead of 6 feet apart, there's better protective mechanisms that can prevent the spread of a virus as contagious as this one we have this year. So getting back to the normal is not necessarily the best thing. Yes, we still need to eat. Yes, we still need to drink. Yes, we still need to sleep. That hasn't changed. That doesn't really need to change because that's a requirement for the human body to work right. But what needs to change is how society moves about each other, how we interact, how we do our jobs. We shouldn't get back to the normal because it caused a problem. If you think about 100 years ago, the normal was a car that is not as safe as we are today. Things have changed. So getting back to the normal, maybe we should look at continuing to progress, continuing change, instead of saying, I'd rather get back to the normal. I'd rather say, why don't we continue changing things for the better? I don't ever want to get back to normal. Personally, I don't know what that means because I've always done things differently. I've always reevaluated everything that I do, and I don't do the same thing, especially if it doesn't work. If it shows that it doesn't work, which ultimately society has had to change so much because of this pandemic, because of this virus, well, it didn't work. Let's not go back to it. Let's try something different. And trying something different doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be successful. It doesn't mean that it's going to work. But doing what didn't work, what the normal was, why would you do that when you know it didn't work? Things have changed. Viruses have evolved. Uh, the way society moves has evolved. If you think about 200 years ago, 300 years ago, if this virus occurred, it would have never spread worldwide. And the reason why is because we didn't have the mechanisms of travel as rapidly as we do today. 300 years ago, to go from New York City to Oklahoma City, that would take about 2 or 3 weeks. Nowadays, we can do it in hours. Technology has gotten better. 200-300 years ago, their normal was birth rates that had a lot of deaths in it. Nowadays, birth rates or so don't have a lot of fatalities overall. Once in a while, yes, you have a fatality when it comes to a birth, but very rarely does it happen in our developed world. Even the way we have technologies, that the science that we know of today is because we're willing to change, is because we're willing to accept change, not that we were willing to stay at the normal philosophies. Even Einstein's theories, science has been able to improve upon them, not necessarily statically stay and consider that was the norm. We still have people who think that, hey, this is this way, or this is this way. Well, new technology says, and new science says, that we can do things differently. We have better material sciences. What weighed 1,000 pounds back then, we can do the same thing, probably with 100 pounds instead now, and have the same quality, and so forth. We have learned so much more about how to develop everything from space rockets or cars that we have, a lot safer. They go a lot faster. 300 years ago, the average car only went about 5 to 10 miles per hour. Nowadays, we have cars that can go almost 300 miles per hour. No, they're not for the typical person, but they do exist. So getting back to normal, I think we should look at not saying that anymore. And people who says, I hope everything gets back to normal. I'd rather that perspective change. And people says, I hope that change happens and continues to happen, because that is the reason why we have everything from YouTube, the internet, the cell phone technologies, our ability to migrate society as much as we do. We have the ability to see the world so much more. 100 years ago, most people would never be able to see more than maybe one side of the United States of America. Nowadays, if you have the financial capacity and the means and the time to do it, you can see the entire world if you want to. So those things with change, they need to happen. Don't get back to the normal. Continue change instead. That would be the better perspective to have on things. And I know it's a comment, and it's like, I don't mean. Yeah, you might not mean to say it that way. That might not be what the original intention is. But when we keep on saying getting back to the normal, subconsciously, what do we try to do? Do the things that didn't work. We always have pockets of people who don't believe, and that's absolutely fine. We always have people who think differently or think the way they want to. And that's the benefit of society, is everyone thinks the way they want to, and they have the right to do it. Doesn't mean that it's right or wrong, it's just how they choose to think. Let them be who they are. The reality is, most everybody, your normal, is going to be able to look at different perspectives and decide if that perspective works for them or not, works for you or not, works for me or not. I will decide for myself what I think, what I believe, and what I don't believe. Do I expect everyone to believe me or to have the same perspective as I do? No, I don't. But this is something to think upon. This is something to ponder, and that is the whole point of my channel, is to look at things that are very similar, but just a slightly different perspective. Is it right or wrong? It has nothing to do with right or wrong. It's probably wrong, it's probably right, I don't care. The fact is, this is just a different perspective. A lot of people might already have that perspective. I'm just making a video about it. That's all it is. But don't look at getting back to the normal anymore. Start speaking in a way that instigates change. Not necessarily good or bad, but at least we know the normal didn't work. Why would we do that anymore? Let's do something else that might actually work better. Why repeat the same thing over and over again if it was going to cause a problem? Once again, it helped a pandemic, a virus, propagate itself so much more rapidly. Let's stop it by not getting back to the normal. Let's look at so many things that can be beneficial, such as change. Thank you.